Hey everybody, the WCPO High School Insider Podcast is back. I am pumped up about it. I'm your host, Mike Dyer. Pleased to be joined by Purcell Marian head football coach David Wirth and Roger Bacon head football coach Mike Blaut. Guys, thanks for being here.
Glad to be here.
Thanks for having us.
Our first episode of the 2019-2020 school year, and I hope everyone has had a great summer. My colleague Keenan Singleton's on assignment today, so he won't be joining me, but pleased to be talking high school football with these two guys, and a lot of sports are on the table. We're going to be talking about a lot of different things here this school year. We appreciate everyone's support as always on the WCPO High School Insider Podcast. Have some great guests lined up for you in the month of August, and we're getting set to go. This High School Insider Podcast is presented by our local Chick-fil-A restaurants, where the winning play is always chicken. Download the app for extra points. And we're pleased to have a couple of episodes at area Chick-fil-A restaurants around town. We'll be talking about that a little bit later in this episode. But as always, you can get this podcast on Google Play, Stitcher, and Apple Podcasts. Guys, again, thanks for joining us. I want to talk about high school football, and that's why you're here. August 1st, everybody gets started. That's tomorrow. How excited are you guys to start the season?
Coach.
It's really exciting. We have our last camp day tonight. Leaving here go right to practice, but it's a little different tomorrow when it's 2 days and you're there for the majority of the day and you're putting in the grind a little bit. But tomorrow's always the official kickoff of the season, and I know I'm excited, and I'm sure Dave and his kids are excited as well because it's here.
Is it Christmas morning, Dave, on
Yeah, a
on
little
Thursday?
bit. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. I mean, every year, that date's circled on the calendar, for myself, for, the kids in the program, and, for my family. I mean, they know August 1st, and I'm sure it's no different for you, Coach. Come August 1st, I'm going to be around a little bit less, and, thank goodness for a great wife to pick up the slack there. But, it's exciting time every year, and it's honestly, I'm sure for both of us, been that way since, we were in high school. And I got started coaching only a year or two into college. So August 1st for me every year since about 1990 or 91 has been go time.
As I mentioned yesterday, I got a lot of reaction. 713 varsity high school football teams in the state of Ohio for this upcoming season, according to the OHSAA. And when you talk about 7 divisions and so many different playoff qualifiers, I mean, it's, it gets quite fun once Week 10 rolls around and trying to figure out all the playoff scenarios and everything. But start of the season, is it a clean slate like everybody says it is? I mean, I visit a lot of practices and camps, and it seems like every coach inevitably says, hey, things are looking great. On paper, guys stay healthy. We're have a great season. And in reality, everybody knows that's not always the case, as things progress. But how do you kind of view it with your players, your coaching staff? What's kind of the mentality? Is it a new chapter every year? Or do you even worry about what happened last season or the off season? Tell us just kind of your approach, Dave. I guess.
I think it depends on the program and the mindset of the program and where you've been and where you're trying to go. So, for us in terms of, still being in the process of a rebuild, it really is every year hitting a reset button. You obviously want to learn from the things, you did well and the things you did poorly the previous season or two. But hitting a reset button and starting fresh, I think, is always good for the psyche of the kids, especially.
Mike, what's your approach with your players?
Yeah, and kind of what Dave said. It is a reset every year. When I took over the job a few years ago, it was kind of a rebuild. I finally have my senior class that I kind of been waiting for. We got a big senior class, and they've been playing since they were sophomores. A couple of them since they were freshmen. So the rebuild is a little different for us. It is a reset. The majority of my starters this year all started last year, so they have a little bit different perspective because they do have that experience. We don't want to dwell on the past, especially with all the new changes that we have coming up with the new league. But we're excited to get it going.
You mentioned the new league. That's part of the reason why I have both you guys in here. Obviously, Purcell Marian and Roger Bacon had played football in the Greater Catholic League since October of 1931, believe it or not. But it was announced in April of 2018, I believe, that both schools are now associate members of the Miami Valley Conference for a 2-year stint. And you're in the both Purcell Marian and Roger Bacon are in the MVC Scarlet with the likes of Summit Country Day, Norwood, and CHCA. So I guess just with that element, and Dave, maybe you could speak to this. I mean, how unique is it to be telling not only your team, your program, but those that support your program that you're in a new league this year, and what kind of challenges does that bring for the Cavaliers? Sure.
In terms of the challenges, I mean, there's a bit of a lack of familiarity with some of the newer teams that we're going to be playing against. That's kind of a double-edged sword. That's good and bad. So there's an excitement level with it, and then there's a degree of apprehension with it as well. In terms of going from one league to the other, especially with as you mentioned the long-time association with the GCL. That's, to be blunt and to be honest, that's bittersweet. One thing that's exciting, I think, for the both of us, I can't speak for Coach, but I'd imagine is that we both kept Hamilton-Baden and McNicholas on our schedules moving forward. So, we see it as we get the best of both worlds. We get to have a little bit of an old GCL Central thing with the four of us all still playing, then also get the perks of joining a new league with schools that are matched up in terms of size and scope, the way we are.
Mike, how's it been for you and just kind of your obviously Roger Bacon, very steeped in tradition in the
right.
GCL. What was that transition like? I guess more so back in 2018 and when this was first announced. How was that explained to your school community?
Yeah, well, I know when I first had it, and I'm old school GCL guy. I'm Roger Bacon. I know he's Moeller guy. So I mean, we got the old roots. Both of us do. And when it was first brought to my attention, I'm like, well, we can't do that. That was my immediate gut reaction as an alumni. But as a head coach, you got to realize, those northern schools we were playing, we were outmatched. I mean, some of those schools have over 100 more boys than both of our schools together, and it was an unfair fight at times. And so, once I stepped back from it and looked at it, it's been great, and the alumni has been very supportive of it. Obviously some of the older school guys, like myself and originally, were a little upset with it,
sure.
But it is what it is, and we got to do what's best for our kids. The tradition, losing the tradition of the GCL is something that's tough to live with a little bit. But like Dave said, we get to play each other again. We're playing Hamilton-Baden. We're playing McNick. We're playing the GCL schools we should be playing. And so, both of those schools wanted to play us. We wanted to play them. So how we've looked at it is we got 3 seasons. We got a non-league season. I got a GCL season. I got an MVC season. And that's the way we're going into it, that we got to win all three leagues.
Mike, what's been the reception like from the Miami Valley Conference and those members just to your program?
They've been fantastic. They're all top-notch schools. They're they got great programs, and I think Purcell and Bacon's gonna we're gonna come in and represent the league very well, and those guys do a great job at those schools. So the reception for us has been fantastic.
And Purcell and Roger Bacon play in October 4th to be exact. Dave, I want to get into Purcell and your team, Division 5. You open the season at Reading, August 30th. Tell us just the optimism surrounding this team this year. You're turning your quarterback, standout Zach Hoover.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about him and maybe some of the other playmakers.
Well, as a coach, anytime you're returning a quarterback, that has a bunch of games under his belt and a bunch of games against top-notch competition, that's an exciting thing for you. So it takes a little bit of the anxiety and a few of the nerves away. Zach's a good kid, a really, really smart kid, a high-character kid. So those are the most important things in terms of having a quarterback and having those intangibles to start and to work with. And then skill set wise, he's a talented passer. Probably doesn't have the strongest arm in the world. He's not a what you would call a true gunslinger. He has a good arm and can throw all the balls that we need him to throw. But he's a crafty passer, and he's smart. He for the most part, especially last year as a sophomore, took his reads very well, and he's athletic enough to get out of a lot of jams and make some plays. So we'll certainly rely on him a lot this year.
Who are some other guys we should be looking for just whether it be skill-wise, up front, both sides of the ball? So
up front, we lost quite a bit. We're only returning, what I would consider to be 1.5 guys. So we're going to be younger. We'll have some size, but they're going to have to accumulate some experience really quickly. And it's going to be up to me as a play caller to look out for those younger guys on the front. Certainly having some veterans around them in the backfield and on the perimeter will help that as well. So on the perimeter, we'll have Lawrence Christian returning back as a receiver. He played a bunch of receiver for us last year. Didn't accumulate a lot of statistics, but he's got great hands. He runs great routes. We relied primarily on him as a safety, as a defensive back last year, where he really did well for us. But this year, as a senior and as a senior leader especially, and is really probably the heart and soul of our team, he'll be a guy that we lean on both sides of the ball quite a bit. We have two returning, maybe 2.5, 3 returning slot guys that got a lot of time last year and did really well. Irv Hodrick Jr., Daniel Foy, Leo Hennigan. So we have some slots that we feel real good about, that we think can stretch the field horizontally and vertically and have really, really good hands and are really crafty and kind of, and at this point, know the offense and know what to do. So that'll help us a lot. And in the backfield, we'll have, pretty much a running back by committee. We've got 2 guys that we feel really, really good about. One of them is a returning kid who played a lot of linebacker for us last year and a little bit of running back named Tony White. He's a senior, and he's got great speed. And I was always looking forward to him developing more as a running back, and so excited to see what he can do. And then the slot I mentioned before, Irv Hodrick, also will double in as a running back as well. So the offense, skill-wise, will be in good shape, and hopefully we can distribute the ball well and stretch the field. Defensively, we lost a lot up front. And of course, with the small school scenario, when you lose a lot of front on offense,
Sure.
you end up losing a lot of front on
kids.
defense. Yes, that's the exact same deal. So we'll be replacing a lot on the defense. We lost a kid last year who, early in the year, first half of our Summit game, week 1, who had a lot of promise as a defensive lineman and as a bigger style running back named Tyrone Tanks, and he's back healthy. We only had him for half a game last year, so we think he'll be a tremendous force this year as a defensive end. A couple other young guys that'll fill in at the rest of the D-line. Linebacker, we got our one of our middle linebackers back, which is really exciting. One of our outside backers, strong safeties, Jalen Hines, who's got 20 starting games under his belt. Will certainly be a force on the perimeter for us. And then 4 out of 5 secondary guys are back, which is nice. So, I think we have some decent depth on the perimeter. We need to develop a little bit more on the inside, but, we're excited to see where this thing goes.
Take us inside your program a little bit, Dave. I mean, what has been the theme or the motto of this off-season this summer, heading into the season?
Yeah, that's an easy one. Attention to detail.
Okay.
Attention to detail. Just trying to do the little things right, whether or not it's our alignment and being exact and specific with our alignment, or our footwork on something, or our eye discipline as a quarterback or as a safety. Any of those things. I think that's really been the missing key. And as Coach alluded to before, you talk about when you take over a program and you hate to say it takes a few years, but the reality of it is that that's the case. And so now I have, 3 classes that are really, just mine, that know that that's the expectation. And I think that's become their expectation too. So that's a good thing.
Do you have to find yourself as a coach? I mean, do you find that the players know the basic fundamentals coming into your program? I mean, or is it one of those when you mentioned it, pay attention to detail? Are you fine-tuning some things? You have the talent there. I mean, kind of tell us what have you seen here the past couple of years with Purcell?
I think it's more the latter. I think it's fine-tuning. I think you get raw athletes, and I think you get some physically tough kids. But you have to really take them and strip all that down and teach them that, okay, it's not just good enough to be athletic,
Sure.
Especially with the schedule that we play and the teams that we have to compete against. You can't just be an athlete and run around and make plays once in a while. All the teams we play against make plays all the time, snap after snap, quarter after quarter, half after half. So it's a discipline issue, and just getting them to accept and to embrace the idea that, if I do little things really, really well, and I combine that with my athleticism and or my size, that really good things can happen for me.
I want to talk about the Spartans here in a second, Mike. I want to remind everybody this High School Insider podcast is presented by our local Chick-fil-A restaurants, where the play of the game is always chicken. Try their grilled chicken nuggets with some Chick-fil-A sauce today. And Mike, I want to mention, obviously, your program, Division 4 and 6 last year, but obviously returned one of the state's most talented players in 2021 running back Corey Kiner, who I profiled this past spring for WCPO, one of the most heavily recruited players at any position in the state of Ohio. And Before we kind of talk about your team a little bit, tell us how Corey has been this summer and how he's kind of handled all this recruiting and attention. We had conversations about that this past spring, but what's kind of been his approach to all this?
Well, I mean, Corey's phenomenal. I mean, as good as a football player he is, he's that good of a kid. He's been on the honor roll the whole time at Bacon. He's a phenomenal kid. He's a kid, he's got 26 offers, whatever. I don't even know how many he has anymore. He's got a lot of offers. And, but he's a kid, let's clean up the field, get the bag. He's cleaning up bags and he's putting away equipment, and he's still that kid, which is phenomenal. He hasn't let it get to him. His dad, I think, keeps him in line pretty good on that. His dad was in my class at Bacon, so he.
Clifton Kiner, by the way.
Clifton Kiner, yes. And so, Corey is very, very grounded. And he knows he gets a lot of praise, but you wouldn't know that on our field. In our weight room, you wouldn't know that.
Just a junior, what have you seen in terms of his growth and progression, whether it be on the field, leadership-wise, just this summer from a year ago?
Yeah, leadership-wise is probably the biggest thing. He's always had the tools. He's got more tools than any running back I've seen. So he's got them all, but it's leadership. He's a captain this year as a junior, and he leads very, very well. There's not many that are going to outwork him, if any, in the weight room. He also runs track, and he was a leader on the track squad, and so the kids look up to him because they know he can play, and they also see him picking up the bags, and they also see him. He leads by example, and he's also he's a vocal leader. I mean, he will get on kids if they're being lazy, and they know that Corey's not lazy, so they better not be lazy.
Business.
So his leadership has really stepped up, and that's what I'm most proud of him right now, because, like I said, his athletic tools, his God-given gifts are there. We don't need to do a whole lot of coaching with that, but the leadership has come a long way.
I want to mention another one of your standouts before we get into your team, but 2020 defensive end James Thompson picked up an offer from Wisconsin last night. Tell us a little bit about him.
Well, James is, right now he's 6'5", 258 or something like that. When he walked in the door, he was like 5'10", 160. So the kid has grown unbelievably. And him getting that Wisconsin offer, which is his 7th or 8th offer right now, that's huge. And he got hurt last year, Week 5 against Hamilton-Baden. And, as good as Corey is, and Corey's, obviously the best player in our team, James is kind of the heart and soul, because he played the O-line, D-line, kind of what Coach just said earlier, that the interior guys, they have to play both ways. And James plays both ways, and he plays hard both ways, and that's kind of how he broke his leg. And so that has hurt him in his recruiting. But I think the colleges they're now seeing him for what he's worth, and he's a player. He is definitely a player.
You mentioned your weight room numbers were maybe the highest in a number of years.
Yes.
The work ethic's been incredible, as what you've told me in your preseason outlook. Tell us just kind of, again, maybe same thing like Dave, what's been the theme or the motto this offseason for the Spartans?
Well, I think it's a lot of it has to go with my senior leadership, the entire class. My seniors, those guys coming in the door were a special class. They were a big class. I think I started with 26, 27 of them. I got 21 of them left, so they've all been around. I got a lot of baseball players in that class, and they just made the run to the Final Four. So they kind of got the edge of they know how to win, they know how to play in big games, and like I said, we've been waiting for them to come along. And last year we were right on the cusp. With most of them playing as juniors, we were right on the cusp in a lot of games and just couldn't finish. And this year I think they want to finish. They know that this is a special team, and then obviously having Corey behind him, especially most of our O-line guys, having Corey behind him is a huge boost as well.
Take us through some of those other guys on offense. Everybody knows about Corey, obviously, but some other playmakers for the Spartans this
year. Corey's good, but we got a big offensive line. I got Nolan Tebby, who's got an offer from Lafayette. James Thompson, obviously, we just talked about. He is on there as well. But the other three guys, they're all returning starters. Gunnar Ludwig, Daniel Cardavellis, Noah Miller, all those guys played last year. So I got my entire offensive line back, as well as the starting quarterback, Tyler Bullock. And so, those core guys are what's going to take us over the top.
And defensively, how do you think things stand there?
Defensively, it's going to be an interesting year. We had to replace our inside linebackers, which they were really good for us last year. We had two really, really good linebackers, Nate Stark and Zach Capel. And to replace those, we're trying to find guys who is going to fit in there. But our front is very, very good with James Thompson, and then Tyler Bullock, my quarterback, is going to get a shot playing that defensive end position as well, and he's a big strong, physical kid as well. Our secondary is very, very good. I've got Ronell Lackey, who was All-State last year as a corner, and then there's a kid. His last name's Blaut, who's pretty solid.
Your son Ryan?
Yeah, my son Ryan. Yeah, Lil Blaut's on the team, and so it's really exciting. He's had 2 really solid years playing in the GCL, and now he's the quarterback of the defense. He's coach's kid. So he's been watching film with me since I can remember and he can remember. So he kind of takes control of the defense. And so, with the leadership of those 2 guys in the secondary and then the big guys up front that have a lot of experience. Demetrius Ward was an all-GCL kid last year as well. He is returning. And so we got a great core of kids on defense. And that's where we have to improve. Our offense is, we've been able to score points. We just haven't been able to stop people. And so our goal this year is to make sure we stop whatever offense comes along.
Talk about that dynamic with your son Ryan. What's that been like the past few years?
It's interesting. Him and I, we ride together almost every day. It actually was nice when he got his license because then he could drive himself a little bit.
Right.
But
nice for him or for you?
Well, for both of us, it's been great. He probably wants to get out of my car, so that's the best thing. But no, so him and I talk a lot, and he talks like a coach. He gets it. He understands it. And he was one of the kids that was on the baseball team this year. So, I was really proud of him and what they were able to accomplish. But I learned a long time ago. I actually talked to Steve Speck one time because he coached his 2 sons. And I said, how do you do this? I didn't want our relationship to be bad at home and whatever. Sure. And he goes, just don't coach him. And, which is hard to do. And I don't talk to Ryan. Out on the field, I tell my other coaches, you yell at him. I don't care what you do you guys coach him. And there's times where I'll see a mistake or I need to say something, and I'll just be like, "Hey, you go coach, go coach him." so I try to avoid it. Now it's hard to do, but him and I get along really well. So it's been really, really.
You mentioned he's watched a lot of film, obviously. So
yes.
Do you guys take the game home to just a certain extent, or how do you know where the line of demarcation is of talking football and family stuff?
I try to. Yeah, we get in the car usually on the way home. Like even after when he played a little bit as a freshman, then sophomore year he started, and then obviously he started again last year. But we get in the car, and I would try to just leave it alone. I like forgetting the game on a Friday, then revisit on. Well, he'd be like, "Dad, why'd you on that 3rd and 10? Why'd you call that play? Dad, why'd you do this on that?" I'm like, "Wait, we time out, man. What do you?"
Right.
So I got my critic in my car as well. But 9 times out of 10, he's right, and so that's the scary part. And he gives me some good insight. Dad, have you thought about this or thought about that?
Do you see a future in coaching?
I do. And actually, he's already visited with University of Cincinnati to be they call them student coaches, the kids on the sidelines that hold up the thing. He's already gone down and visited, and he's going to set up a visit again this fall. And I don't know if that's going to be his career choice eventually, but I think if he ends up in coaching, he's going to be really, really good.
That's great.
Yes.
Give us an update on the Braun Basevich Stadium. We've got a lot of great things happening there.
Yes. That is really exciting. I played there back in the 80s when it was a cool stadium, but it wasn't in the best of shape, and it needed a facelift. And the new turf helped, and they painted the stadium a few years back, and it was kind of putting lipstick on a pig a little bit at times. Those days are over. Everything leading up and to around the field is getting redone. New parking. We got 2 new huge buildings that are up. We have new concession stands coming. Next phase, we're going to get new locker rooms. We're getting a new training room. We're going to have a monument center underneath to Braun Basevich and all of our great football players we've had. So it is really exciting. And when we get to practice down there, our kids get to see it. Like we all come down and the kids all go, "Hey, that's new and that's new." And, and so we get to see it progress. And so our first game on September 6th there against Newcath is really exciting. We're building for that, and our kids are excited. And that's also my son's 18th birthday. So
well, how about that?
I told him, I'm like, "Hey, look, happy birthday. Look what I got you."
Sounds like a good story there.
Yeah, it is.
You do open the season August 31st against Dayton Dunbar at Welcome.
At
right?
Welcome Stadium, yes.
As long as the surface is going to be okay?
Yeah, as long as the Bengals clear it for us, we'll be okay.
There you go. Good deal. Hey, bigger picture question for you guys. Mention the numbers at the outset of this episode and conversation about, it's just a hot topic, obviously, participation numbers across the board in high school football and where they stand. And some people say, it's a doomsday approach to, things are dwindling. And then other people say, no, it's not that at all. And then some are saying, it's kind of in between. Where do you kind of stand? Is Division 4 and 5 programs, respectively, do you see numbers increasing? Do you see kids wanting to be coached? Where do you see the future of high school football? Dave, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I think it's really safe. I think if anything, it's going to, if you talk about all the stuff related to concussions or other injuries and things like that, and maybe how that might have affected numbers in Pop Warner or other youth leagues. Honestly, I haven't experienced that at the places that I've been at. And if anything, our numbers are continuing to slowly increase. So, and I don't get the feel from talking to other coaches that there's any type of backlash against football locally, or certainly within the state. I mean, how many teams did you say the state's going to have?
713. Yeah.
I think that speaks volumes for the safety of the game, and certainly the awareness level of certain things has I think made us all better as coaches, and made our programs better and made the sport safer. But I think it's every year I've coached since 1995, I've just seen things get better and better and better in the game in terms of how we train our kids and how we take care of our kids and how we coach them and all those things. So I mean, I'm more proud today to be a high school football coach than I was 20 years ago.
What's the biggest difference when you go back to 95 to a player today? When you coach them, people say obviously nutrition, strength and conditioning has improved, but
Sure.
I mean, if you kind of brought those two players together and had a time capsule or time warp where what would you say the biggest difference or the biggest challenge as a coach has been, I guess, from 95 to today?
I think getting kids to realize the importance of living in the moment and excelling in the moment, and figuring out what is important now instead of living in a fantasy world that revolves around social media and video games and all those kind of things. That the guys that I had back then as a young coach at Mower and or even as a young head coach at Baden in 2004, 5, 6, et cetera, those guys didn't have a lot of the distractions and stimuli that these guys have now. Not that was eons and eons ago, but enough has changed that the guys today do have a lot more distractions and maybe a lot of other ways that they could spend their time. And, of course, as a 44-year-old guy, I'm of the opinion that a lot of those ways aren't exactly real valuable and aren't going to help them in terms of building their successful futures. But that's
sure,
every 40-year-old says that. So, but yeah, I just think the amount of distractions and stimuli today can be nearly overwhelming.
Northwestern coach Pat Fitzgerald had a soundbite there that kind of went viral on social media in terms of how he was out on a date with his wife and he saw two other couples just kind of, staring at their phones, not even talking to each other. Mike, what impact has social media and maybe some other distractions, or if you call them distractions, or other, you mentioned stimuli for student athletes, how has that impacted the way you've coached and approached things over the years?
It has definitely changed. I'm a little older than Dave, not a whole lot, but I'm a little older than Dave. So so even going back into the 80s, we didn't have that. We didn't have all of the attention that is given to these kids. You talk about Corey and the attention he gets and the attention that James Thompson. It is amazing to me that those kids can do it, and they just kind of blow it off because they're so used to it. And so there's some good aspects to it, and there's some bad aspects to it. Like Dave said, they can be severely distracted. But as a coach, as an older coach, we got to be able to adapt and get the kids the information. They can go to Twitter and watch videos of college kids doing what we're doing. So there is some benefit to what they do. We can send them YouTube videos. We can. It's so instant now. The old school, paper playbooks,
right,
where you had them a notebook, which it's still viable and it's still good. The kids want it on their phones, and they want it in their hands, and they can see it and they can manipulate it themselves on their phones. And so it does have some good and bad things. It's keeping them focused off of the bad things that social media can bring to kids is the biggest thing. And so we have sessions with the kids where we talk about, hey, we always talk about behavior on social media because it can get them into trouble. But we also talk about, hey, guys, use it as an educational tool. Use it to teach yourself how to do things. And then go find things that we're teaching, and it'll be backed up by other coaches because I know we go to clinics and we talk to college coaches and we get information. We can just go to the internet and find it. Okay, well, the kids can do that too, and so they can make themselves a better football player just by researching the correct things.
Sometimes just by seeing that XYZ college does it, or this pro guy uses this exact same drill, it can justify,
Yes, exactly,
what it is that we're asking them to do at times. So coach is 100% right. There's positives and negatives to it, and it's emphasizing the positives and getting those to embrace those, and trying to keep a noose on the negatives for sure.
Well, besides being a head coach of a high school program, how effective, or what's the most effective way to connect with these student athletes these days, Dave? In your mind, what approach have you taken, or are you malleable? Are you changing, every couple of seasons and saying, hey, wow, this didn't really work, so we're going to teach it in a different way, or we're going to give them a different theme because they didn't respond to that this year? Or
I'm probably old school.
What ways have you found, I guess?
I think that it's all relationship driven. It's all being hip to hip with them and shoulder with them all year, and being in the weight room with them in the off season, and being interested in the other things that they participate in, be it basketball or baseball or track or this club or this extracurricular, and getting to find out about their families and what's going on and what their interests and likes are, and the things that make them happy and things that make them sad. I think it's just spending the time with them and building the relationship with them, because if you don't have a relationship with them, they're not going to trust you, and they're not going to do the things that you're asking them to do, but that you're really asking them to do for their own benefit.
Mike, what's it been like just year after year coaching for you in terms of the energy that you get from a lot of these student athletes? And a lot of coaches tell me, boy, I stay young because I'm around these kids, these teenagers. I mean, what's it been like for you?
Yeah, it's kind of what Dave said. You build the relationships with them, and the kids 99% of kids, they're going to be positive about things when they're with their buddies and they're with their teammates and they're having a good time. And so I think, as older coaches, we kind of feed off of that. And like Dave said, you build a relationship with the kid. I look at them as my own kids. My son Ryan's on the team, but I look at them as those are my boys. I mean, those are my kids. I want the best for them. I want them to have fun. I want them to enjoy it. Football is a definitive game where there is an ending. Dave and I can't go play football again. We could, but we're probably going to die. But it's not going to be good. Yeah. But we could go play baseball. We could play basketball. We could play tennis and golf and do all that. Football has an end, and the kids need to understand that. And that's one of the things that I preach to the kids is you get one shot to do this. You get one time. Not many go on to college. And so you got one shot to do it. Let's have as much fun as we can. And their excitement builds, which helps my excitement, and it helps me stay focused in what we have to do.
Well, Mike and Dave, really appreciate your time and perspective, and best of luck to both of you this upcoming season.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
That'll be all for today's WCPO High School Insider Podcast. You definitely want to join me tomorrow at 3 p.m. at the Fort Wright Chick-fil-A, as we will be talking high school football again with Beechwood coach Noel Rash and Covington Catholic coach Eddie Evanston, a special episode again at the Fort Wright Chick-fil-A. That's all we have for you today. We'll talk to you tomorrow.